Have you ever walked out to your garden in the middle of the summer, expecting to find a lush, green canopy of cucumber vines overflowing with crisp, juicy fruit, only to find something deeply discouraging instead? It is a scenario that plays out in backyard gardens across the country every single year. In the beginning, your cucumber plants seem unstoppable. They climb their trellises with vigor, push out bright yellow blossoms, and hand you a few beautiful early harvests. But then, almost overnight, the momentum grinds to a halt. The new leaves start emerging smaller and paler. The older lower leaves begin to lose their vibrant green luster, slowly turning a sickly yellow from the edges inward. The vines that were once reaching eagerly for the sky now look tired, limp, and completely exhausted. When this sudden decline happens, the immediate reaction for most gardeners is to reach for a box of heavy synthetic fertilizer. We assume the plant is simply hungry, so we douse the soil with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, hoping for a quick turnaround. But what happened next surprised me during my early years of growing. Instead of bouncing back, my struggling cucumber plants actually seemed to decline even faster. Their leaves scorched at the tips, and the few tiny cucumbers they did manage to produce became misshapen, bitter, and stunted. It took years of trial, error, and conversations with master organic growers to realize that we are looking at the problem completely backward. Most gardeners don't know this, but a cucumber plant's health is not determined by how much fertilizer you dump onto the soil. It is entirely determined by the health, activity, and depth of its root system. Cucumbers have notoriously sensitive, shallow, and fibrous root systems. They are incredibly inefficient at foraging for nutrients on their own. If the soil environment is cold, compacted, or biologically dead, the roots simply shut down. When those roots go dormant or begin to decay, the plant can be sitting in a goldmine of soil nutrients and still starve to death because it lacks the biological machinery to absorb them. To understand why your cucumbers are stalling, you have to recognize the subtle warning signs of root level distress before it is too late. The first sign is a distinct slowing of vine elongation. If the growing tips of your vines stop pushing forward and instead bunch up into tight, dark green clusters, the roots are crying for help. The second sign is blossom drop. When a cucumber plant realizes its root system cannot support the water demands of developing fruit, it will systematically abort its own flowers, letting them dry up and fall off the vine. Finally, you will notice the classic pinched cucumber shape, where the fruit is wide at the stem but tapers off into a thin, pointed, undeveloped tip. This is a direct indicator of poor nutrient and water translocation, a job that belongs entirely to the roots. The secret to endless, heavy harvests of perfectly straight, sweet cucumbers does not lie in chemical stimulants that force artificial growth. Instead, it lies in a traditional, biologically active soil therapy that seasoned growers have kept close to their chest for generations. It is a method that focuses on waking up the dormant microbial life immediately surrounding the root zone, creating a highly efficient, living bridge between the soil and the plant. Once you understand how to activate this biological bridge, your plants will not only survive the heat of summer, they will thrive, producing a continuous supply of heavy, crisp cucumbers until the very first frost of autumn. Here's where the real secret begins. To rebuild a weak root system and unlock the nutrients already trapped in your garden soil, we do not need expensive, laboratory-formulated root boosters. Instead, we are going to harness the power of two simple, everyday kitchen ingredients that, when combined correctly, create a biological powerhouse for your soil. Active dry yeast and plain, unsweetened, natural yogurt. To understand why this combination is so incredibly effective, we have to look at the science of the rhizosphere, the narrow zone of soil directly influenced by root secretions and inhabited by a dense population of microorganisms. Active dry yeast, known scientifically as Saccharomyces cerevisiae, is not just for baking bread. It is a single-celled fungus packed with proteins, amino acids, B-complex vitamins, and natural growth hormones like auxins and cytokinins. When yeast is introduced to the soil, it acts as a powerful biostimulant. It doesn't just feed the plant directly, it feeds the beneficial native fungi and bacteria already living in your soil, causing their populations to explode. As these native microbes consume the yeast, they break down organic matter at an accelerated rate, releasing locked-up nitrogen and phosphorus in a form that the cucumber roots can instantly drink in. But yeast alone is only half of the equation. This is the step many people skip, and it is the very reason their homemade mixtures fail to deliver spectacular results. To truly supercharge this blend, we must introduce lactic acid bacteria, which we find in abundance within plain, unsweetened natural yogurt. Lactic acid bacteria are elite soil conditioners. They are incredibly efficient at suppressing harmful soil-borne pathogens, such as the fungi that cause root rot and damping off. Furthermore, these bacteria produce lactic acid, which temporarily and safely lowers the localized pH of the microenvironments around the root tips. This slight drop in pH solubilizes essential micronutrients like iron, zinc, and manganese, making them highly bioavailable to the plant. When you combine the cell-multiplying power of yeast with the protective, nutrient-unlocking power of lactic acid bacteria, you create a symbiotic colony that transforms the root zone into a highly active nutrient absorption zone. To begin preparing this life-giving elixir, you will need to gather your ingredients and pay close attention to the details, as temperature and timing are absolutely critical to success. Start by preparing 10 grams of high-quality active dry yeast. You will also need 500 milliliters of water, which is roughly 2 cups. This water must be lukewarm, specifically hand-warm, sitting right around 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Do not use hot water under any circumstances. Many well-meaning gardeners make the mistake of using hot tap water, thinking it will dissolve the yeast faster. In reality, any temperature exceeding 110 degrees Fahrenheit will denature the yeast proteins and completely kill the living organisms, rendering your mixture useless before you even begin. Pour your lukewarm water into a clean, wide-mouthed glass jar or container. Gently sprinkle the 10 grams of dry yeast over the surface and let it sit undisturbed for about a minute to hydrate. Then, using a wooden or plastic spoon, stir the mixture thoroughly for about 1 full minute until the yeast is completely dissolved and the liquid takes on a cloudy, tan appearance. Once your yeast is fully dissolved in the lukewarm water, it is time to wake it up and give it the fuel it needs to begin multiplying. To do this, add exactly 1 teaspoon of granulated white sugar to the mixture. Stir it continuously until you can no longer see any sugar crystals at the bottom of the jar. The sugar serves a vital purpose. It is an easily digestible source of simple carbohydrates that provides the yeast cells with an immediate burst of energy. As the yeast consumes the sugar, it undergoes rapid fermentation, producing carbon dioxide, enzymes, and beneficial organic acids. Without this small kickstart of sugar, the yeast would remain sluggish, and the fermentation process would take far too long to establish a dominant microbial colony. Immediately after the sugar is fully dissolved, you will add the second key player of this biological formula, 15 milliliters of plain, unsweetened natural yogurt, which is equivalent to about 1 tablespoon. It is absolutely vital that you use plain yogurt with no added sugars, artificial sweeteners, fruit preparations, or preservatives. Preservatives and chemical flavorings can inhibit or kill the very lactic acid bacteria we are trying to introduce to our soil. Gently spoon the yogurt into the warm yeast and sugar mixture and stir it with a gentle, steady motion. At first, the yogurt might clump slightly, but continue stirring until it is completely integrated, creating a smooth, milky, and slightly frothy liquid. Now seal the container with a lid, but do not fasten it too tightly as the gas buildup from the fermentation process needs a way to escape. Place the container in a warm, shaded spot out of direct sunlight, such as a pantry shelf or a shaded corner of your porch. Let the mixture ferment undisturbed for exactly 2 hours. During this quiet period, a microscopic revolution is taking place inside the jar. The yeast and the lactic acid bacteria are feeding, multiplying, and releasing a treasure trove of vitamins, enzymes, and organic acids into the liquid. When you return to open the jar after 2 hours, you should see a layer of fine, active bubbles dancing on the surface, accompanied by a rich, pleasant, bread-like aroma. This is the unmistakable sign that your fermentation has been highly successful and is teeming with life. Once the 2-hour fermentation period is complete, you must prepare the master concentrate, known as the Stammlösung. To do this, measure out 5 liters of clean, chlorine-free water into a large bucket. If you are using municipal tap water, it is highly recommended to let it sit out in an open bucket for 24 hours beforehand. This allows the chlorine, which is added to city water specifically to kill bacteria and fungi, to completely evaporate into the air. Pour your entire fermented yeast and yogurt mixture directly into the 5 liters of water and stir it vigorously to ensure an even distribution. However, this master concentrate is far too strong to be applied directly to your plants. Applying it undiluted could cause an osmotic imbalance that actually pulls moisture away from the delicate root hairs. To prepare the final application solution, you will use a dilution ratio of 1 part master concentrate to 10 parts clean, chlorine-free water. This gentle, highly balanced dilution is the perfect strength for regular plant maintenance, providing a steady, safe stream of biological activity without any risk of root shock. Before you pour even a single drop of this diluted mixture onto your cucumber plants, there is one critical step that many gardeners skip, often wondering why they don't see the dramatic results they hope for. You must thoroughly pre-moisten the soil around your cucumber plants with clear water approximately 30 minutes to an hour before applying the mixture. If you apply a biologically active liquid to bone-dry soil, the dry soil particles will act like a hydrophobic barrier, causing the liquid to run off into random cracks and away from the root zone. By pre-watering, you create a continuous moisture pathway in the soil. This allows the living yeast and bacteria to glide smoothly down through the soil profile, distributing themselves evenly throughout the entire root zone rather than pooling uselessly on the surface. Now that your soil is beautifully pre-moistened and your diluted solution is ready, it is time to apply this natural elixir to your garden. The amount of solution you use depends entirely on the size and maturity of your cucumber plants. For young, recently transplanted cucumbers that have established a basic root system but have not yet started climbing vigorously, a light application of 300 to 500 milliliters per plant is absolutely perfect. This gentle dose is enough to colonize their developing roots without overwhelming them. For mature, climbing vines that are actively blooming and heavy with developing cucumbers, you should apply a generous 1 liter of the diluted solution per plant. When applying the solution, pour it slowly and evenly in a wide circle directly around the base of the plant, targeting the drip line where the active feeder roots are located. There is absolutely no need to spray this mixture onto the leaves or the main stem. This is a root-active therapy. The leaves cannot absorb the beneficial fungi and bacteria, and leaving wet yeast residue on the foliage in humid weather could inadvertently invite unwanted fungal leaf spots. Once you have poured the solution, do not rinse the area with clear water. Let the mixture sit undisturbed so the microbes can begin bonding with the soil particles and root surfaces. For standard maintenance, applying this biological drench once every 10 to 14 days is more than enough to maintain a thriving, highly efficient root system. However, during periods of prolonged, warm, and humid summer weather, your cucumbers enter a state of hypermetabolism, growing at an incredibly rapid pace while simultaneously facing higher pressure from soil pathogens. During these peak summer stretches, seasoned gardeners will shorten the application interval to once every 7 to 10 days. What makes this recipe even more incredible is its versatility. While it is a miracle worker for cucumbers, it delivers equally spectacular results when applied to other members of the cucurbit family, including zucchinis, summer squash, winter pumpkins, and watermelons. These plants share the exact same shallow, sensitive root structures and high nutrient demands as cucumbers. If you want to try it on other heavy-feeding crops in your garden, like tomatoes or peppers, simply test it on 1 or 2 plants first, observe their reaction for a few days, and then roll it out to the rest of your garden once you see how much they love it. The results became visible just days later when I first used this method in my own garden, and I am confident you will experience the exact same transformation. By day 3 after the first application, you will notice that the leaves of your cucumber plants look noticeably more turgid, standing crisp and upright even during the heat of the afternoon. By day 7, the pale yellowing leaves will begin to darken into a rich, deep forest green, signaling that the roots have successfully restarted their nitrogen and micronutrient uptake. By week 2, you will see an explosion of bright yellow female blossoms, the ones with the tiny cucumbers at the base, followed by a heavy flush of perfectly straight, sweet, and incredibly crisp cucumbers that show no signs of bitterness or tapering. This simple, low-cost biological drench is a testament to the fact that the most powerful solutions in the garden are often the ones that work in harmony with nature rather than trying to force it. It is an easy, rewarding practice that will completely change the way you look at plant nutrition. If you want to continue unlocking the deepest secrets of organic gardening, learning how to build rich, living soil, and growing the most abundant harvests of your life, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our practical, hands-on garden guides. Drop a comment below to let me know how your cucumbers are doing this season, and share your results once you give this simple yeast and yogurt recipe a try. Thank you so much for watching, and here's to a bountiful, healthy harvest in your garden.